Welcome everyone to the Tesla Beat podcast. Sorry we missed last week. We were out celebrating the American holiday, July 4th. And it was obviously very fitting, even given all the stuff. Alexandra, congrats on your citizenship and everything.
Thank you. I love it.
Well, and so we'll do a little bit of catching up from last week. So we thought we'd bring in a couple of extra guests. So we have obviously Joe, the Cyberprez. We have Alexandra, Tesla Boomer Mama. We have Hans C. Nilsson on X. I remember that because I do his tags for these podcasts. So welcome back. I know it's been a minute. Thanks for your time today.
Excited to be here.
And then we have Brian, FutureAzA, or formerly My Tesla Weekend. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you, Brian, for being here, especially given the last minute notice. And you are, it sounds like, somewhere else, not home.
I am in Nuevo Leon. I am here to go see the no progress of the Mexico factory, but also check out BYD and other Chinese brands while I'm here, and perhaps even tour a factory.
Sounds great. That's awesome. Well, that's amazing, man. So you're gonna have to let us know the update when you get back, if there is an update rather than no update at all. Okay, so we have since our podcast has, I think aired last, we met about 2 weeks ago, there has been an insane run up, almost 50%. And I pulled the year to date numbers, and this is the first time. Obviously, we had a little bit of a drop yesterday because of some, rumors or whatever, but it is insane to finally see that this is actually in the green for year to date specifically. So shout out to all the long-term holders. I know it's been kind of a nasty ride. So, congrats to those who kind of weathered the storm and didn't sell your stock and stuff. But again, this is hopefully, if you're long-term minded on your Tesla shares, hopefully this is continuing. There's always going to be these insane highs and lows, especially with Tesla stock. As we know, it peaks, it has valleys. But it's great to see this amazing run up. Again, I know that I feel like for the past, what is it? I would say 4 months, it's just been a lot of negativity. I think, maybe, again, I know it's one of those things for all of us that we don't just pay attention to the stock, maybe necessarily on a daily basis, but has there been any thoughts? Are you feeling more positive from the community? What's been your mindset? Obviously, again, I know a lot of you, maybe the answer is like, hey, you don't really care about the stock price, whatever. But at least it has been fairly negative. It's been kind of like, Tesla bulls going bear, a bunch of people just being super negative. But what has the, past week or two been like as you've seen the delivery numbers, which we're going to get into, and as you've, more stuff? Alexandra, you're going to give us an update on the court case, but I'll kick it to anyone who wants to just chime in.
I don't mind starting on this one. I think what we have is actually a catching up. We spoke with a couple of cyber bulls last week to Dan Ives, who always has a good finger on the pulse of institutional investors because they obviously consult with him and want to have his input. And he gave us one very valuable information. He gave us lots of valuable information, but one that I particularly liked, which is that they shifted on 2 points. One was, once the shareholder vote was over, they actually went from an underweight to their benchmarks or whatever they consider their neutral Tesla exposure. They went from an underweight slowly back up towards neutral. So that happened over the 2-3 weeks after the shareholder meeting. I would say we probably saw that one most in the last week of June and the first week of July. And then when the July delivery numbers came out, first of all, they weren't as bad as everybody anticipated, but the second one was that energy deployed had doubled. And I think that is really the first time, and Dan Ives confirmed that, that institutionals suddenly understood that there is an energy market and that energy could, as soon as now, make up 10% of Tesla's sales, and the energy sector is actually more profitable than the car sector. And so there was an awakening there, and he confirmed that by saying that over the last 5 years that he covered Tesla, he had about 10 calls over the 5 years on energy. In the last week, he had 12. So there was a major shift. And then once they put that line into their spreadsheets, right? I mean, you know how they are. It all has to fit into some little squares on Excel. Then it suddenly made sense. They could project it. I don't even think they understand yet that there's deferred revenue with energy. I mean, it just sounds crazy to us retail investors who for 2 years know this and have done our homework on these subjects. But there you are. I mean, they're looking after 50 or 100 stock, and Tesla has been beaten up so much that they're coming from far. So that's that. And I don't believe it was actually all this hype, for Robo-Taxi Day on, well, maybe August 8th or maybe October, we still don't know. I think that's even not yet on their radar, because when we asked Dan what he expects for that Robo-Taxi Day, he was his main expectation was that they may announce a fleet operator. Now, in my list of 10 things that I would expect on Robotaxi days, I think the fleet operator is probably in the lower teens, right? It's really going, it's not in the top 3, it's not in the top 5. But there we are. That's how they operate. So given all that, I just think this was catching up back to neutral from institutions, and we're by far not where we should be, because we should have been by far here for a long, long time. And so then when yesterday morning, Bloomberg came out with the supposed news, we still have no confirmation, that Robotaxi Day would be delayed by 2 months. We lost, I think it was in total about 8%. You see, in a market that was overhyped, it should have been 15 or 20%, right? Just because if everything was linked to Robotaxi days, the impact of such a news, the way the market reacts, should have been much bigger. Yet it was not. So I was actually buying this morning. I announced it on X. I bought another 100 shares just because I found that was ridiculous what happened. So I got them at 240, and I think we're now back up to 250. But so let's put that just straight for a moment. The fact that the dip was not that consequent just tells me that people are structurally buying and will be buying for quite a while now. So it's good news for all retail investors. We should have never been as low as we have been. I mean, I think in April we saw 148 or something like that. It's absolutely crazy. We're now back up to 250, and I'm quite confident we're going up in the next couple of months to 300 again, which where we should be. So for me, this is just a catching up and good news that finally people are looking at energy.
So I'll jump in here and say, in terms of the people who are negative, they're always going to be negative. There's nothing that will please them. When it comes to the people who are on the net positive side, I've seen a lot of enthusiasm, improvement over the last week or two. People are excited. They saw those energy deployments. Those are big, big numbers. And that's really the diamond in this delivery report, is just how much they went out. I think Alexandra is right that Wall Street doesn't realize how lumpy and deferred those payments can be for projects that have already been fully paid for by Tesla. By the time all the parts are in and it's at the door heading out, Tesla has paid about as much as they're going to for it. All those costs have been incurred, but the majority, almost all of the revenue, is going to be months out at least, and you don't get the final payment until it's electrified, until it is permitted, all done, and switched on. So that's a lot of it takes a while to get that flywheel in motion, but once it is, it'll smooth out a bit. So I'm not seeing a lot of shock. Now, what could have happened with the stock? It could be something as simple as a handful of people said, well, with this tiny bit of bad news, I'm going to just take a little bit of profit.
I think Brian cut,
goes
right?
Spook easily, and it can have a cascading effect. I hope some of that came through.
Yeah, we got most of it. Let me just add
I cut
one
a bit.
extra.
I cut a bit, but the important parts were out.
Sorry. Yeah. So I just wanted to add one piece to the mega pack discussion. Not only, do you delay most of the recognition of the revenue until it's electrified, But one of the points that's been out there for a while now that has come into a little bit more light here recently, that I think JP has said this for a while, and then Matt has finally kind of come around to this, and he was convinced by Larry that there's these performance guarantees that are also part of the contract for the mega pack that says, it's going to, on average, provide you with at least this much energy. Like, there's a lot of different types of services that the mega packs provide to the grid. It's much more complicated than the average person would understand or realize. And there are performance guarantees that are attached to each of those different types of services that they are providing. And they do not recognize the revenue for those performance guarantees until the project has been in service and electrified for a portion of time, and they can prove that, yes, they are meeting those performance guarantees. And so there's quite a bit of revenue that it looks like maybe finally getting recognized off of old projects finally now that we haven't seen for a long time. And that should be a massive tailwind to the margins for the mega pack business that really should push it beyond the 25% number that we received guidance from Zach quite a while ago. And so if we don't know that we'll start seeing major impacts from that here right now in the short term, but we'll start to see the first inklings of that. And then if you couple that with these huge just growth in deployments here in the last quarter, then you do get very clear visibility into the future of what this is going to look like. And that is what Wall Street investors care about. And so if they can wrap their minds around this, that can be a massive tailwind for the stock as well.
So I'm going to take a different take on this. I think the community the community has a good mood because it's kind of wild, I think, to see how moods change around the stock price of Tesla. And I've watched this for years happen, like it, but man, the echo chamber of X is massive, right? So you see these things, like, I think, like, within the same 24 hours, Ross Gerber had said, man, it's crazy to be a Tesla bull. And then, like, minutes later, he was talking about how trash like things were. It's like, once, like, the stock went down a little bit, it's like, so I get everything that you guys are saying about the energy. And I think it's great that they're late to the game, but they're finally realizing it. I think there's still a lot to realize. And it's just interesting how the community reacts around these emotions when we know what the company's worth. We get it. We've been following it. And like Alexandra says, like, I mean, like, we're early in, so we already get it. And to watch these people catch up late, I don't know why people tie so much emotions into these late bloomers of this tech that we've known for years is going to dominate. There is something that Omar said that I thought was Homar's on X, I thought was really impactful, is just realizing that right now in all of the world, Tesla is the only pure battery EV company that is making profit, like, in the entire world. And that alone should, like, be a realization for Wall Street, but it's not, right? You know what I mean? They're just like, oh, well, who's the next Tesla? But instead of realizing, like, you're watching all these companies fail, and yeah, I mean, the numbers were not as bad as what they were expecting, but those numbers are better than anybody would wish to hope for, like, in a years. You know what I mean? Like, you're looking at numbers that people aren't getting on freaking their ICE production right now. So just that alone, I think is great. I really kind of, it's just really interesting how the community reacts around these things. But I'm excited. I think like, if you're in for the long haul, then you get it. But it's just interesting to me to watch it unfold, to watch people be like, yeah, good times. And it's like, no, it's always been, if you've been following Tesla, it's always been what it's always going to be. And Elon said this. He said that, I mean, he said this years ago. He said that the mega packs were going to out profit the freaking vehicles. And everybody thought he was crazy for saying it. He was a loon. Like, oh, that's, you know what I mean? And now it's like, everything he says just comes to fruition. It's like so weird that people like don't believe him until they actually have no choice but to believe him. Really weird.
Yeah, I would say I would agree. I think with everyone, I think the community has been very reactive, to be honest. As we've all seen, I think this is not the first time. I remember, I mean, partially one of the first times how I met Amy, for example, who used to be regular on the podcast. She came out during one of those really bad, when there was a major downturn of the stock, what, like 30-40% or something. And a lot of the Tesla bulls were going bare, especially a lot of the actual like YouTube influencers who ran channels were all going kind of like haywire. So I think that's the big thing. And that, I want to remind the community, if we can, is continue to think long-term, be an expert in the space. If you don't feel comfortable, diversify. But it's kind of funny. It's like Andre Kaparthi the other day was like, every time I diversify, I lose money. And I can tell you from a personal experience, that has been true for me. Every time, you get a little less bullish on something that you're an expert in and you throw it into something else, those are typically times where there's this insane, crazy run up. But ultimately, obviously, do your own research. This isn't financial advice, but I think it's a good reminder to stay grounded, do your research. I think Joe brought up a lot of great points along with everyone else, is that, there aren't people who are doing the things that Tesla's doing. I do think Tesla's doing a great job, especially I believe it was after Q1 where they started to make this kind of transition from a car company into AI robotics. I mean, they had for a long time, but really talking the lingo, spreading the message to the street, especially as EV growth was slowing down. But as Joe was saying, no one is doing what they're doing on the EV, let alone gas, on the gas side. So I think it's just really special. This company is a once in a lifetime. I really, I'm excited to see what this company is going to do. If 8.8 is going to happen, if it's not going to happen, maybe on a later date, that's not going to change what this company is going to accomplish. And, I think Alexandra brought up it, I was actually thinking of it. So while we were actually on this call, I literally bought more. But it was one of those things where, those rumors and things like that, it's not going to change the company. It actually gives you potentially buying opportunities. I mean, there's been this insane run up. So, yeah. So we're going to get into Q2 deliveries, but I wanted to I wanted to kind of give Alexandra the mic back specifically to just quickly give a big, or not a big update, necessarily a big update, but an update on the courts. So I know Amy was out there, her case was being heard as well, but Alexandra, do you want to just give us a quick update on,
Sure. Where we
what's
are.
been going on the
Okay.
past week?
So the one thing I always try to say at the beginning, people have to understand we're still in those Delaware courts for a while. There are a couple of cases still pending. The good thing is that since June 14th, we're incorporated now in Texas, so no new cases cannot be brought to Delaware anymore, but there's still lots of old stuff around. So just, we're going to hang in there and we're going to try to solve them the best way possible. So in the Tornetta case, there are actually two things happening at the same time. One, that preliminary judgment needed to have a fee determination and to know how much Tesla would owe to the plaintiff's attorney. And that hearing took place on Monday. And you're right, Amy was there because Amy, as you all know, filed an objection, and her lawyers and her were there and were heard in the afternoon. It was a long day, started at 9 o'clock in the morning, and there was at one point they even thought it could spill over to Tuesday. In the end, it ended on Monday evening late. But crazy stuff. I mean, absolutely crazy stuff. The judge gave actually initially time to the plaintiff's attorney, which is unusual. And they kept on pounding that they deserved 29.4 million shares, not dollars. And that would actually be funny if she gave them $29.4 million. But sorry, that was just me thinking loud. So 29.4 million shares, and why they deserve that, and why anything that Tesla has been doing since doesn't have any value, to not give them this wonderful price of 20, and they would be very careful in how they would sell them and blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was actually funny because they said at one point they will work with Glass Lewis and what is it, ISSS, whatever, those proxy advisors to do it the right way. I mean, I was just laughing my head off because that's exactly the two names I don't want to be hearing there, but there we go. The other thing is they really insulted us because they said to the judge that whatever Elon and us and shareholders have, I mean, they didn't say shareholders, but that's what they meant, was a clown show. So that's us. Okay. So just so that you all know about it, we're a clown show. So I found that so, I mean, offensive and
That's insulting.
It is, right? I mean, we're not a clown show. We did what was right. They're a clown show for bringing this whole case now for 6 years and making us lose time and energy on this crap. But anyway, there we are. So that was the morning hearing, and then Tesla's lawyers came, did a very good job, and then Amy's lawyers came. So do remember Amy's objection. CalPERS joined her, so those lawyers now not only have Amy's shares to represent, but also CalPERS, who has a large position in Tesla. And then there are also two other investors from Florida. They're actually lawyers, but lawyers in a completely different field. They usually help lottery winners. The story always gets more colorful. And so these two shareholders also filed an objection with the help of their law firm that they mentioned. And that second objection to the plaintiff's attorney's fees, ARK Invest joined them last minute on Sunday with a very nice brief from their lawyers. So we have now ARK Invest presented on our sides there as well, which I think is a nice gesture by ARK Invest to do. So that whole thing ended on Monday evening, and officially they have. So that's the first part. That's the part that had been waiting for since end of January on the fees, and the judge has to statute and decide on that one now. At the same time, about 2-3 weeks ago, Tesla injected a motion to vacate. What does that mean? They want the whole case to be gone because we revoted, right? Now, is that going to be successful? Low chances, but it would be wonderful if it works, right? So it was certainly worth the try. We'll see what happens. So that motion initially was not even sure that the judge would let Tesla express why they thought so, but in the end, I think it was on June 27th, she said, okay, you can file a motion to vacate with the maximum amount of words, because in this lawsuit there's always lots of pages filled with words, which had to be done by the next day, the 28th, and obviously the Tesla lawyers were ready, and so on the 28th of June they filed a very convincing motion to vacate the case. And so we're waiting actually today on the plaintiff's attorney's response to that. They are not allowed to 14,000 words. They are only allowed to 8,000 words. So that should come today, be published on Monday. We'll see when we get it. So, I mean, you can expect them to be as polite and generous as they were when they called us a clown show. So that's that. And for that part, there will be a hearing as well. So the judge said that she is waiting for proposals from both attorney sides on the date. And now, surprise, surprise, rumor has it that she has fixed that date on August 8th. I mean, isn't it a great coincidence, right? So, I was just speechless when I heard that. So it's not confirmed yet, but there seems to be a big chance that it is August 8th, where they're going to do the hearing on the motion to vacate the whole case. And then once that is over, we expect in some weeks or short months after that, finally her judgment, which I still expect very favorable to the plaintiff's attorneys. And then I expect Tesla to appeal the case. But we just have to go through all these steps. And I think it was courageous of Tesla to try a motion to vacate. No idea whether that's going to work. But if she comes to any senses, she should. But that hasn't proven the case for the last 6 years. So very unlikely it happens now.
Awesome. Thank you, Alexandra, for being the knowledge expert and staying up to date on that. I'm going to pass it to Joe specifically as we look at some stuff that, again, this was announced last week, but our pod did not meet last week. So we're going to get into this.
Yeah. These delivery numbers, like I said before, the whisper numbers were low and they beat that. So what they said publicly was very different. I think the cool thing about this, and good thing he's here, is Brian has been crushing it. Apparently, he's got a crystal ball, or is from the future, and so he sees these numbers. Brian, you want to tell us how you do it? Oh, Brian's frozen. Ah, too bad. But is he really frozen? I think he is frozen. Oh, he's back. You want to tell us about the numbers and your crystal ball?
Yeah, so I was frozen, so I may not have heard the entire question. But what kind of numbers are we looking at moving forward? Well, so I did hear a rumor, and I cannot stress enough that it is a rumor, that Model Y production has been slightly limited in Texas because of some of the resources that would be generally used to build a Model Y have been diverted to getting Cybertruck ramp up to speed. Now, you could argue that, well, we already make enough Model Ys, but do we? Because you can always lower the price a little and move a lot more. And even something like $1,000 off or 0% interest or better FSD transfer terms or something like that can be a very strong demand lever. Even a new color can be a strong demand lever. So I think this is being ironed out. I expect, of course, Q3 will be stronger than Q2 is what I'm looking at right now. Things appear to be moving magnificently at all the other factories. So yeah, I'm expecting a small increase, certainly over Q2, but it's too early to know if it'll be over last year's Q3.
So you're not from the future. You just do your homework.
I am, but as soon as I observe the future, it changes. I just keep creating alternate timelines, you guys. I'm so sorry.
Brian, before we kick it to anyone else, can you just tell us your thoughts on Q2? Because you had one of the most accurate numbers.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, there's people look at a lot of times the wrong things. We knew the inventory kept growing. We expected it to be drawn down a bit. How so many people missed that, I'm not sure. But Q2 was good. It wasn't magnificent, but we're up against headwinds in the interest rates and macroeconomic factors. But other companies are struggling too. You look at somebody who says, oh my gosh, we did so great. Our EV sales are up 40%. Right. Good job, GM. You sold 3 days worth of Tesla's production. That's not something to get excited about. Well, our whole company's up 1%. Yes, but 1% from garbage. You're comparing Tesla to all-time highs. You need to go back and compare General Motors to their all-time highs, to back when they had 50% market share. And then tell me how you're impressed with this company. And remember, Mary's package will be $50 million if she hits performance targets. And that performance target is lower than last year's volume. She'll get 50 million if she sells less cars than before. So Tesla's in its own thing. The reason sales are not growing is because we're seeing a strategic shift. If Tesla was planning to be a car company, they would have continued building factories with new models and growing at 50%. But I think on the Robotaxi day, we're going to understand the shift better and understand the ways in which we're asking the wrong question. And these delivery numbers are not, the end of the world. They're not. Does anybody look back at the quarterly figure 2 years ago and go, man, if only that was 10,000 units higher? It's a fun game we play, but it's not the most relevant part of the discussion, as you guys know.
Hans or Alexandra?
Yeah, I just wanted to also once again add a little bit of color there to Brian's very incredible commentary. Not only is GM selling fewer cars, than last year, potentially, or those targets for Mary Barra are lower than last year's sales, but one of the big numbers to look at is the fact that GM is down over 50% off of all-time high volume in China, and that China is the world's leading auto market. In the United States, we like to think that we are the most important country in the world, and in many ways we are, but our auto market is half the size of China's. And the Chinese automakers are increasingly becoming the world's leading automakers. And I would highly suggest anyone who hasn't to go watch some of Michael Dunn's interviews. He had a fantastic one on Herbert's channel a few months ago, and then I had the privilege to get to talk to him with Farzad last week as well. And he just laid us out how dominant these Chinese automakers that we've been hearing a lot about are going to be on the global stage compared to everyone else besides Tesla. And, this is a huge competitive threat for a company like GM, and they are losing the competitive battle in key markets right now, and it's only going to get worse from here. And so, yeah, not only are they, you know, kind of flat overall globally, there is someone who is really coming to eat their lunch, and they're facing pressure both from Tesla, but also on the low end from these Chinese automakers, and the picture does not look good.
I will add to that real quick that there are over a dozen Chinese EV brands already in Mexico. And I'm going to be going around and looking at those all this week because these look like, reasonably good, reasonably affordable cars. I am seeing, as far as I can tell, none of them on the road. I don't think I've seen a single EV yet the whole time I've been here, but it will be interesting to see what's actually for sale in this market.
Alexandra or Joe, did you guys want to chime in on Q2?
No, I said earlier.
Well, real quick, I will say that I watched that video with Hans and Farzad. And Hans, you had a really good take about like national security and how, like, I mean, we know that this is a a war of vehicles happening right now, and it's kind of sad that we only have in America, really our only strong player is Tesla. I mean, kudos to Rivian for what they've been able to produce, but it's really not, they're not manufacturing at the level. And of course, neither is Lucid. But I think like you had some really good points about that. And I thought that was very interesting. And so I want everybody just to realize that there is a fundamental shift that's definitely going to happen. In the next 5 years are going to be crucial for automakers. And there's a lot of writing on the wall that a lot of people aren't seeing. And they're just basically making the American manufacturing the new blockbuster. And it's just going to be really sad when a lot of these companies fail eventually, and that we are stuck with who we're stuck with because people just didn't want to back American engineering like they should. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I first off was just I think we've been kind of just steamrolling on some good. A lot of good things happening in that, I'm glad the shareholder meeting happened with the move to Delaware. The Elon comp plan was voted, and all along, Tesla was able to come out and beat the estimates that were given. And I think that was, just huge backing to, again, that, the right decisions are being made. They're executing well. The fundamentals are there. And sure, again, the growth is slow, but I think, Joe, what you and Hans are mentioning about some of these other companies, it was interesting too. Ford, Jim Farley came out and was like, "Hey, I love EVs," and I think he also sees the writing on the wall as much as whether they're out of all the legacy auto, we know that they're doing they're one of the best. Are they doing enough? I don't think so, but I still think that I'm glad that they're actually turning it up. One other call out too was I believe the Chinese government just added Tesla or the Model Y to their government vehicles where you could purchase. So I think that, yeah, Tesla is the only player really that can compete against these Chinese automakers. And more importantly, like no other company has been shown this much favor. And no other American company has been shown this much favor by by the Chinese government, whether it was standing up their own owned factory, because typically you have to work with another, company or subsidy in China in order to even have a factory in China. So there's just a lot of things that Tesla has been shown favor where they actually can compete. Because imagine, Tesla wasn't able to do all this thing. There wouldn't really be a whole lot of competition because you'd have to remove the Chinese numbers if they weren't able to be in that market. But either way, I think, there's not a whole lot you can't, you can't, you can put lipstick on a pig, and, it's still a pig at the end of the day. And so if the legacy automakers don't want to make these changes, it's really on them. And, they've already pretty much built their own grave. They're digging the coffin right now. And so, yeah, that's just my thoughts. But it's been awesome to see, I think, from a bird's eye view, just a lot of these, Tesla continuing to just hit for an amazing batting average right now. So that's the one thing I wanted to call out there. So again, let's keep this rolling. So it looks like, Tesla has just been dropping these FSD updates pretty frequently. I mean, so it's been really, really cool to see a lot happening on that end. But Elon made the comment, 12.5 will finally combine the city and highway software stacks. I had actually thought that this had already happened, and hopefully, I don't know if this will happen. I think there was one of our members actually saw a Cybertruck with LiDAR on top of it the other day. So yeah, we were in a group chat, and he was in Cupertino area or something like that, and he saw it. So it was pretty, hopefully we're getting closer to that. But Tesla continues to be just putting out these updates as they continue to iterate.
I think real quick, I think watching this rollout, and I made a comment about this on X. The hardware 3 is a workhorse, right? And we know hardware 4 is coming, Cybertruck and whatever comes after that. And he's already mentioned like the improvements to hardware 5, but just knowing that it's taken this long to get 12.5 to where it is, I think that's gonna be like where we see hardware 4 start to roll and start to take over. Because with hardware 3, you're looking at like, I mean, this is like the hardware and software is like years old at this point. I mean, you got to think about like the early iterations of it, and them even like developing all of that tech and all that and to where it is now. Like this is like a true workhorse system, but knowing that we're rolling into hardware 4 is what I think this boils down to, what it seems like to me, because Cybertruck can do a lot of things. Like, I mean, those of us who have driven it, it recognizes all stoplights, and it stops even though it's not enabled, it'll still do all these things even in cruise control. It's pretty interesting to see. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen going forward. I don't know if anybody has any insights on that.
Sure, I can take that. So I don't think we are yet to the point where we have models that have been developed specifically for hardware 4, but we're definitely moving in that direction. I would be personally surprised if 12.5 was a version of the software that was specifically designed and developed for hardware 4 and not for hardware 3. The commentary that I've been listening to from Elon makes me think that when he said it's difficult to fit a model that has 5 times more parameters on hardware 3, he didn't say it was impossible. And I think that's one of the factors that is leading to some of the slowness in getting 12.5 out. But I would agree with just the shape of your comments overall, Joe, that is where we're heading, that we are going to be developing these models specifically for hardware 4. And I think, we already have a lot of vehicles that have hardware 4 in them that are running FSD. And so I don't think that they necessarily need to have a model that's developed for hardware 4 before Cybertruck can get it. I think the issue of getting Cybertruck to work with FSD is slightly different than anything necessarily having to do with hardware 4. So I think they're also working on that piece. But when we do have models that are developed to run on hardware 4, I think that will help to reaccelerate the development of full self-driving a little bit. It depends on how much the bottleneck really is what Elon has been, kind of banging the drum on recently, and that's being able to find where are those interventions now. Because that was one of the things we've been running up against, this bottleneck for the last year and some change, that the amount of compute for training that we had was the thing that was slowing down the progress. And we solved that. And so we kind of thought, well, hey, once we break through that barrier, then we'll just be able to go really fast from there moving forward. And I think what we're discovering is that there was another bottleneck that was just behind that we didn't have any visibility of. We didn't know what it was going to be. And so we didn't know how to predict it. And that there is another bottleneck that's like that is going to take some time and some engineering effort. Then it's not any harder than any of the other bottlenecks that we've already been through. We are going to solve these issues as well, in my opinion. But I think the speed we were hoping for, just rapid exponential progress, and the speed of the progress to be very, very fast once we did solve the compute thing. And I think what we're seeing is that it's not slow, but it's not as fast as we were hoping for. And especially when we train a whole model from beginning to end all over again. So that's 12, everything from 12 to 12.3 is all kind of one base model, and then 12.4 is a whole new base model, and 12.5 is going to be a whole new base model. I think every time we start over with a new base model, that we're going to have the types of kind of weird, quirky issues that we first saw in 12.2, and then we're kind of seeing again at the beginning of 12.4. I think we'll see that again with the beginning of 12.5. I think we'll see that again with the beginning of 12.6. And so I want people to have realistic expectations about what the speed of the progress should be, and that when we run into these issues, that those issues don't necessarily mean that we're not going to be able to solve this. This is the normal process of discovering where the new challenges are that we're going to have to solve, and then just applying Tesla's incredible, world-leading engineering masterpiece of a machine to solving those issues and continuing to get us one step closer. And I'm really excited now. I finally am a new owner of a Model 3 that does have FSD, and I can finally experience what it's like to drive the car with full self-driving here in East Texas, which is kind of a middle of America area. I don't live in big cities, and so I can kind of test it out in a little bit different operating environment than probably most of the data that they get, and maybe that'll be valuable for them. But I've just loved observing the car and watching it make decisions and learn. And I'm also excited about feeling the pace of those updates as a driver, not just as an external observer watching, AI driver and Edge Case and Chuck and all these people, what their evaluations are.
Yeah, well, first off, congrats on your Model 3. I saw that. Actually, I was going to mention that, but I forgot about that. But yeah, no, that's amazing, man. One question is, like, obviously as you're going to, this is kind of becoming this is your daily driver now. What has that transition been like, and how more real is, because I think, especially, we have so many friends in Europe, for example, and I had 3 or 4 of them come out from Germany to the US in the past couple months. And for them just to see, because autopilot's pretty much the same and as at parity with Tesla now at this point in Europe. But here, you come out here and you try FSD, and it changes everything. But what has your first several weeks as an owner been like?
Yeah, so my actual transition is probably similar, because I had rented the car in the past. Even though I wasn't able to afford a purchase on one, I did want to experience the vehicle as someone who had such a large investment in the company. And the last time I drove it, FSD was a package that was available in the car, but it was right at the very beginning of Navigate on Autopilot even being an option that was available. And so really what I experienced then was essentially what Autopilot feels like today. And so the difference between that and driving, 12.3.6 as a daily driver is just massive in terms of the intelligence that it feels like the vehicle has, and its ability to sense the environment pretty accurately and make, solid decisions 95% of the time. So that has been a fun transition. And then the transition from gas to EV, I did not have a charger. The I bought it used third party, and it didn't come with a mobile connector, so I had to wait for that to come in. So it finally came in yesterday, and now I finally have the ability to charge at home. So I was really kind of limping along trying to figure out how to go. And man, supercharging here in this area is non-existent. Like my closest ones are 45 minutes away. I basically use as much battery trying to drive to them to get a charge
Wow.
as I would get. So that that was a challenge. So having, here in this area, you have to have a garage or somewhere that you can charge at home overnight. Otherwise, it is just not a viable solution. Like if I lived in an apartment here, unfortunately, the ownership experience of trying to charge in this area would basically make it not feasible. But obviously, I have a garage, and so that's not a problem. And I'll be installing my wall charger over the weekend this week, so that not only do I have charging, but I have fast charging, or at least relatively fast charging, and I can have, in a few hours be able to charge up the entire battery versus having to wait, 2 days or whatever with the, the mobile connector on, 110 volts. So, experiencing all of those things is fun as an owner now instead of just, um, rental here or there, or getting to ride in one when I travel, with friends or those types of things. And yeah, man, just solving that last little piece of having that charging, never having to go to the gas station again. And now the other vehicle that we do own is a Sequoia because we've had changes in our family dynamics over time to where the most we've ever had was 7. And so we needed a very large car. So we have the Sequoia for, large groups of people. And now that we have the Model 3, we're definitely, and we don't have to carry that many people around for the most part. We're going to be doing most of our driving in the Tesla because
Yep.
the fuel cost between the two is insane, and the driving experience in the Model 3 is superior, unless like this morning I went and grabbed a trailer, and of course I'm going to pick the Sequoia to do that, and towed that around for a little bit. So for those types of work things, the Sequoia is going to be the go-to vehicle for the foreseeable future until I can finally upgrade to a Cybertruck. But if you can, or if I can take the Tesla, I will. Like it's just
Yeah, it makes sense.
no comparison.
Well, congrats again. And with that, funny enough, of course, in very Tesla fashion, they dropped some big news. I mean, I think the $35,000 car is finally here. With they announced the rear wheel drive, I believe. And here, hold on, let me just get this in front of me. So they announced the rear wheel drive, which is without any savings. It's 39,000, and then they also have the range rear wheel drive, which gets the tax credit. And with that, that literally means, which is 42,500 or whatever it is, if you the tax credit works for you, because you meet the requirements, you can get into a 363 mile range EV for $35,000. That is incredible. Probably the best bang for your buck. I mean, closing in on 400 miles. Like that just doesn't just, that's incredible amount of range. But that was pretty crazy that they just dropped that last night. And I believe that this is going to definitely, I think, move the needle and help them continue to just move cars. But any thoughts on some of the other stuff? I know there was some small changes too, for some of the other things that they had as well. But this was, I think, the big news.
Let me make a point just real quick about affordability overall, because this, obviously affordability is such a huge issue for consumers overall. And this has a massive impact not only for new vehicles, but also for the used vehicles. And so this is part of the reason that I was even able to make the purchase at this point in time, is that, I was able to find a used Model 3 with full self-driving that was eligible for the used EV tax credit of $4,000. And so the prices of these new vehicles, coming down to the point that they're at, helps drive the cost of the used vehicles lower as well. And obviously, we're getting mine is 6 years old. It was a mid 2018 model, and so the age of them also makes them more affordable. But it's possible now to find for under $25,000 these good. I mean, mine is a long range dual motor, so it's not even a standard range vehicle that I was able to find for that price. So I don't think people are understanding that, for under $400 a month car payment, you could drive a Tesla today with full self-driving if you're diligent to just look for the deals. And some of them are even available. I saw, one last week that was selling out of Minnesota, that it was Tesla, a used vehicle in Tesla's inventory that you purchased directly from Tesla that was a long range 2018 Model 3 that had FSD on it, and it was eligible for the tax credit. And it definitely sold relatively quickly. So somebody out there purchased directly from Tesla, one of the vehicles that I'm describing. And so if you just watch that, and if you want the extra confidence of buying directly from Tesla, that's something that's available. If you've got the extra money and you want to get one of the sweet new Highland updates, that definitely worth it if you have that ability to do that. $35,000 is a great deal on that car as well. But just overall, so many more people are now going to be able to afford to make these purchases. And then as interest rates come down, coupled with these prices, it's just going to be even more and more people who can finally afford to get into one.
Joe or Alexandra, did you have any thoughts on the news from last night?
No, not.
All good. Well, there was a couple of other things that just continue to come out. I think Model Y is the king in.
No, she's a queen.
She's a queen. So that's why, Joe, thank you for doing this deck. You said king.
Joe, I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Next time you just leave the king at home.
So whatever you want to call it, the Trump card of China. But that's insane because from what I know, and keep me honest here, the Model Y is like almost double the price of some of these EVs. So it's just if not triple the price. Like it's crazy to see these type of numbers coming out of China. And again, Model Y was the best selling car in all of the world for 2023, and I think it's going to be on its way for another years for 2024. So really, really incredible to see. And then I think since we're on that too, I think where is this? Cybertruck, best selling.
That's the king. See?
Yeah, exactly. All right. But yeah, the Cybertruck is the best selling truck as far as Q2 goes. So it's insane. It's now obviously not necessarily total for the year quite yet. But for the Q2, I mean, it's going to easily pass Ford for the year with no question. But two huge, I think, crowns for the Queen and the King. But what are your any inputs on that? Was this some of these things sooner? What about the thoughts on China as well?
Man, it'd be really good to have Jeff here. But I think on a personal note, the Model Y numbers in China are incredible because you're looking at BYD, who's selling like a $14,000 vehicle over there. Like I mean, like the Seal and all those things, that those death vehicles are so cheap. And so, I mean, you guys, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the Hans video with Farzad or not, but what Dunn was talking about was how they cut corners to just try and catch up to Tesla's production, just try and meet what Tesla's doing. Like so these vehicles, like they don't have the safety parameters that the Teslas have. They don't have like all of the things that come standard for us with the homologation and things like that with Tesla as they do over in China. But I mean, like, it's their own country, they can do whatever they want, right? So they cut corners just to try and meet these these numbers and try and catch up to what Tesla's production is doing. Is, as we know, Tesla's just a manufacturing like behemoth at this point. And I think that alone, like, there's so many cheap vehicles over there and so inexpensive as well, that you can, to see Tesla do this is something that really needs to be shouted from the mountaintops. I don't think it goes underappreciated. I think it really needs to be appreciated more, what they're doing in China. Like you said, it's the biggest auto market globally. Yeah.
It's crazy. Welcome back, Hans. We were just, I forgot what you saw, but long story short, we showcased the Model Y getting the crown for the queen as far as China being the top Chinese EV or BEV, whatever you want to call it. And then the Cybertruck is now the best-selling truck as far as Q2 goes, but easily will pass the Ford Lightning year to date. But any thoughts on those two results?
Well, I mean, I would say, honestly, not particularly surprising in either case. At least the China one is a little bit more surprising because, as you know, Joe is mentioning, they are up against competitors who have such cheap offerings that, and I would say probably the value that you're getting on a seal is about what is the price that you're paying for it. And it's great to see Tesla being able to, the reason that consumers are willing to pay the price that a Model Y is because the value that they're receiving in return is commensurate with that price. And to the point where more people feel like it provides more value to them and they purchase that vehicle more often. That's just great to see, especially in, like I said, the number one auto market in the world. And it's going to continue to be the number one auto market in the world for the foreseeable future. As China goes, so will go the rest of the auto industry. And so, great point there. And then, yeah, absolutely not surprising that the Cybertruck is catching up to and passing the flagging efforts of Ford with the F-150 Lightning. I mean,
but it's ugly and nobody's going to want it.
Yeah, obviously no one, not any influential people in the entire world are ever going to want to be seen or caught dead in that thing.
Well, awesome. We are actually, I think one of the last things, maybe just for news, just I'll hit you with this. Giga Berlin continuing to just move forward on their expansion. So really exciting. They're getting more approvals, to move forward with the construction of the second major phase of their construction. But wanted
let me probably inject just a quick one on Berlin. So in Germany, it works that way that you get these permits in tranches. So they have the first preliminary hurdle, which is fine, but they don't have the final approval yet. So you will see in the press saying, oh, the final approval is delayed, it's going to come, whatever, right? So don't get distracted by that. The only thing that Tesla is doing is, since they got the preliminary first tranche, is they're starting. That is at their risk. If they don't get the final approval in a couple of weeks, short months, they would have advanced too far and would have to make whole whatever they're doing. They're taking that risk. So just as an investor, be prepared. There will be more press articles about a second tranche that is finally approved, about the final tranche that's finally approved. So this is going, in stacks. It's completely normal. And then you will have journalists that are completely offended that Tesla already goes ahead and does stuff, which is completely legal. It's at their own risk, but it's completely legal. So just know about all this noise. We've had that for previous tranches of Giga Berlin. This is happening again. Don't get distracted. I think we're all on the right road. And I think it's very good that Tesla is taking the initiative to go ahead as soon as they can. Because, we've taken so many delays with all this crap of, whatever. I don't want to get into it, but just, putting into context the whole thing.
Definitely. Thank you for dropping your bird's eye view.
Queen wisdom. That's what you wanted.
Queen wisdom. I said bird's eye.
I was going to say wisdomous. Very wisdomous.
Exactly. So quick note, we are literally 2 weeks away from the X Takeover. We have some amazing speakers and exhibitors, experiences that you can actually feel and experience, whether it's e-mobility, bikes, all that stuff there. An amazing live show. We're going to announce a live performer. It's actually going to be part of hopefully close to 200, maybe more than 200 synchronized Teslas on a light show. So it's going to be the first ever live performance with a percussionist who's going to be just jamming out on his Cybertruck to 200 Teslas or close to it. So it's going to be amazing. Ride and drive. You're going to get to visit the first ever San Luis Obispo sales and service center. It's just brand new. And then Tesla will be giving drives as well, demo rides. So you want to check out some of their latest models, come out and view it. We're going to have an EV showcase, a customized showcase, a Cybertruck showcase, which is new, and then a super modified section. So again, family friendly. So go to xtakeover.com. Just have to do that plug. It is really going to be an amazing experience. So I would love to meet you, see you there, and hopefully you can make it out. So with that said, I want to thank Hans for your time this week. He's tagged on X, and then also I tagged his channel in the description. So please subscribe to his channel and support all of his amazing work, and Brian as well. So who was joined for the first half of the call. So thank you again also to Joe for putting the deck together, and for the famous Tesla Boomer Mama for just dropping some knowledge. Have a good week, everyone. We will see you next time.
Queen Wisdom.
Queen Wisdom.